Okay, so for today's post, I thought that we do it outside, and we'd examine a bit more about what I think PR really is today, and it's something that I've picked up a lot of in the research for my forthcoming book, Making Waves: PR Strategies to Transform Your Maritime Business, and it is that PR more and more now is more than tactics, more than communications gloss, more than an add on to marketing. It is fundamental to the strategic direction of any organization. And to play that strategic role, PR needs to be in the C suite, in the board, uh, and it needs to be feeding into the C suite the views of stakeholders and the trends in society and in the industry that we work in and the industries we work in. Because PR is not just about broadcasting a message and expecting people to be influenced by it and to believe in it. PR is about listening as much as it is about communicating and talking about your message. It's about listening to stakeholders. And if we expect stakeholders to become an advocate and to be influenced by our message, then we have to show that we are prepared to listen and be influenced and become advocates of our stakeholders' message. We can't simply be talking about ourselves. And I think that this is a very powerful thing for PR now. And a good example recently was the breakaway European Super League, which appeared to be such a tone deaf announcement by the football clubs because they didn't seem to be aware, although that is incredible in itself, but they didn't seem to be aware of the stakeholder fury that would be unleashed as a result of this idea. And so those football clubs are now fighting, the owners are now fighting a rearguard action to try and improve the reputational damage and repair the reputational damage that has done for them with the fans, with key stakeholders, footballing organisations, and numerous other people, politicians, etc. And that is where PR should have prevented that, because an organisation that is in touch and in tune with its stakeholders is at a considerable advantage over those that are not. And if we look at Maritime, for example, Maritime has got this massive agenda to decarbonise and to hit green targets set by the International Maritime Organization to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by half of what they were in 2008 by 2050. And we know that lending institutions, the so-called Poseidon Principles, £140 billion worth of funds controlled by lending institutions, are now going to assess whether they lend money to shipping lines, depending on whether they are in line, their ships are in line with the decarbonisation targets as set up by the IMO. So we're seeing that there is an example of the sort of what we call ESG, environment, social governance structures that are now putting pressure on organisations to prove that, unlike CSR, which was more about gestures and showing, we are doing worthy things and please give us recognition, this is actually more pressure. ESG is more pressure. It's saying we will not lend you money. And I have heard from very senior people in the maritime industry that these lending institutions are so serious about these Poseidon principles that maybe there will be some ships that cannot operate because they cannot get the money to operate if they don't hit the targets. So where does this leave the PR? Well, the PR needs to be feeding into the organisations that this is happening, this is a trend, this is something that organisations are going to have to get up to speed with. And it's not just about getting the ships ready, it's the whole the whole concept that goes with that, supporting the IMO, supporting other organisations like the Getting to Zero Coalition, which is driving decarbonisation targets in maritime. It's getting behind it with passion, and I think part of the problem, perhaps with organisations looking at purpose-driven operations, is that it has been purpose washing or greenwashing, and that is not going to be enough. The era of gesture CSR is over. We have to, as organisations, be authentic in what we do with our operations. If we say that we believe in green, then we have to show we believe in green, because PR, the definition of PR by the CIPR is about what you say, what you do, and what other people say about you. And by far the most important part of that statement is the what you do, because what you do says a lot more than what you say. So that's my thought for today. I do hope it's helpful. It's something that I've picked up a lot, as I say, from my book, and it's a big theme, and it's something that organisations need to really get a grip on, particularly in maritime, where there is so much sea blindness, and PR is not always prioritised as well as it should be. The maritime organisations, are going to have to get real and get serious about communications and PR, and get PR into the C-suite. And I think that as a sector, maritime and other sectors need to come together like a rising tide to improve the standards of PR and the respect that PR is given in the operational strategic direction of the business. It is not simply an add-on to marketing. So that's me signing off.